Hello, and thank you for tuning into this week's episode of Bite-Sized Cybercrime, the podcast where we discuss cybercrimes and cybersecurity news. This week we'll be talking about a new vulnerability/attack where a single character can hide malicious instructions for AI browser assistants, allowing them to bypass typical security features and execute these malicious instructions anyways. This vulnerability was named HashJack. It's a type of indirect prompt injection attack. A prompt injection is a type of attack where malicious inputs are given to an AI that cause it to act in unintended ways, usually to bypass security measures so that you can have the model leak data or even create malware. In order to do this, HashJack doesn't involve anything actually being typed into the prompt box on whichever AI site you're on. Rather, the URL that you're using to access the agent is what's abused. AI agents will typically read a full web URL, including some extra tracking info after a hashtag or # that most of us, and even most web servers, typically ignore. It's not important information for them to know. The issue here is that threat actors can use this to inject commands into the URL that the agent will read, but no one else will really be aware of because they're not reading it. This allows attackers to effectively hijack a website without actually compromising the site itself. By injecting certain commands into the AI agent on the site, users viewing it may unknowingly be interacting with an AI agent that has been manipulated to give false information or trick you into handing over your login credentials. What's even crazier is this can be used against agentic models, which can be manipulated into automatically stealing sensitive user data and exfiltrating it to the hacker. This attack is also really difficult to trace back or catch. As I mentioned, these weird little fragments never actually leave the web browser to go anywhere. Any defenses on your network or your servers will simply not catch it because it's not really looking for that. That's not where most attacks Heck, that's not where any attacks really come from. Even your logs will only show a clean URL stripped of all that other data. It effectively leaves absolutely no evidence. From my understanding, attackers will likely be weaponizing this by sending links to websites with malicious instructions after the hashtag in the URL. The website itself will look entirely legitimate and normal. If you click on a malicious HashJack link, you will still see the same old Google Gemini or Copilot or ChatGPT that you know. All your data will be there, nothing will seem amiss. The part that is rather dangerous is if you don't know what you're looking for, it's really difficult to spot. The AI agent is going to behave about the same as normal, but it may subtly ask strange questions or give you incorrect information. And that's scary because it abuses your trust in that website and in that AI agent as a whole. Thankfully, before the original article I read was released, and before this podcast was released, obviously that had to happen in a specific order, many of the AI models have been patched. Microsoft responded by fixing the issue with Copilot for Edge last month, and Perplexity, if you've heard of that, had fixed it for their Comet browser about 2 weeks ago. Google, however, as of the date of this recording, has not resolved the issue for Gemini. Instead, this was marked as won't resolved due to it being intended behavior, which seems pretty unusual to me. It was ranked by Google as low severity, but I could honestly see this being incredibly exploitable. We tell people not to click on links all the time, but they still do it. And if someone clicks on a link and sees that it's just a normal, familiar Gemini website that already knows who they are, they're not going to suspect their data is being stolen from underneath their own nose. And that is really dangerous. If you don't have that moment of clarity where you realize you've been scammed, or even how that could be possible, how long could this attack last? How much data could it steal? How long will people not close that malicious browser window and just tell it absolutely everything? I mean, let's be honest, I've had browser windows that have been open since like the beginning of time, and I'm never closing them unless my machine crashes. I don't think this behavior is unique to me. So with all these questions I've asked, you may be asking some questions yourself, which is, okay, how do I prevent something like this from happening to me? Thankfully, the answer for you is very simple. Avoid clicking on links that people send you to websites. Yes, I'm serious. I personally always manually go to my browser to enter the URL that I know just to make sure that it's not some kind of malicious redirect. Especially if it comes from my email, because I am well aware of all the fun ways you can get scammed. The web browser is one of the less talked about vectors for attack that I think we're really going to start seeing amplified. The computing world is moving away from installed applications. For computers, specifically phones, are a whole different story, and I have some theories on where that's going to. Anyways, we're moving towards websites that you use to access a service rather than you just have the software installed and that's how you access the service. I'm expecting to see an increase in attacks like this that target the browsers, especially for things like credential harvesting, which we do already see quite a bit of. Most browsers are also not quite equipped to handle them in a preventative way. A lot of browser security we see is more of an afterthought, which is really unfortunate because for security, that doesn't always work very well. That said, secure and enterprise browsers are starting to be a thing that we see in the future for more secure web browsing. And with the chaos and unpredictability that comes with AI and new attacks against AI, having it embedded in your browser could cause some issues for the browser attacks that we will likely see a big spike in. It's a brand new part of the web browser surface area that we didn't really have before, and now that we do, we're starting to see some of the consequences of that. Thank you to Cato Network's Hacker Read, InfoSecurity Magazine, and SC Media for information on this case study. I always love talking about new vulnerabilities when they come out, and I hope you enjoy it too. Thank you, of course, for tuning into this week's episode of Bite-Sized Cybercrime, and until next time, stay secure.